Yes, indeed. So Juniper is, I think, just transitioning at the moment from a more, I would call it traditional company when it comes to decision making, yes, more based on experience and intuition, really towards a data-driven decision-making company. It's quite a big step, and we're not finished there. We're still in the transition, yeah? One part of enabling this transition is really to have an architecture in place, yeah, so like the data lake that Brian and his team have built. The other part, I would say, and I would argue, it's the bigger part, is really to change that mindset of the people that have to use the data, that the people that have to use the new tools, to a data culture. Yeah, and as well to drive adoption. We are using Bombora Intent as one of the sources, and the usage of Intent has been for us actually a great example of how that mindset can change and as well how adoption can progress. Key to this success that we have had is, funny enough, it's a very simple one. It was really just involving sales as our receiving group for the intent right there at the very beginning. It was really, and it was not a one-off. It was not. It was really. You could call it like a cycle, a constant cycle of involvement that still happens to this very day. Yeah, and so basically it was really sharing, to make an example, it was sharing the data. This is what it looks like. This is what we want you to do. To basically encourage them, off you go and use it, to re-engage with them. And basically to as well educate again if necessary and get their feedback, adjust, yeah. And by doing that over and over again, we found the volunteers that we needed actually to drive the adoption. Those volunteers really brought the first proof points. Those proof points then turned into leads and translated into some opportunities that actually, and with those opportunities in the system, we could prove, okay, this process kind of works and get actually the leadership sponsorship. I think the biggest challenge here was, or still is in parts, to overcome this organizational resistance, you could call it, yeah. And that goes back, I mean, you might call it not really trusting the data or maybe more being skeptical, not really knowing what it is about, anything that's you're not really familiar with, yeah, how do I use it? However, the experience that I made was actually quite amazing because in the moment that sales got it, yeah, they saw the value and they saw how this can help them grow the business. It changed my position, because my position usually is to go like, okay, Brett, look at this beautiful tool, I would like you to use it, yeah? But now that changed to sales really talking to sales and actually being their own advocate. Okay.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that point, the cultural change that's happened in Juniper has been really hard and challenging. Yeah. That's why we call it from head to heart. If you've heard of Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, I think, he says that's us basically, right? A lot of our salespeople or even leadership, they come in and they say, oh, this one client over here said we have to do this, therefore it's now a strategic company imperative, and let's run, right? Well, yeah, in Kahneman's book, he says, anybody can solve 2 + 2, but can you actually, off the top of your head, do 20 times 32? Maybe Brett can, but thinking about that and how you get to that calculation is where data comes into play, and moving a little bit slower from your intuition to actually making data-focused decisions. About 2.5 years ago is when we started, and we got lucky. Our CMO made a pretty big investment in building out this team. We didn't know exactly how it was going to work, who we were going to get. We knew that we just needed to get these 3 components in here. So from our perspective, when you think about behavioral data, what are people doing? And then you can combine that with attitudinal data, what are people thinking, right? And that's more of the traditional market research. That, to us, from a research or data perspective, is the holy grail. But you can't stop there. You actually have to do something with it, too. So that's where we brought in the marketing automation team, and we use Eloqua to activate those insights as we find them. So we built a data lake, and what we call it is Verity. Anybody know what Verity means? Truth. Yeah, it means truth. So I heard a couple people say that. So what we did was we put all this data into the one system. What's unique about it isn't just that the data is in that system. but all of that data is connected. So we know if someone's been exposed to our digital impressions out there online, then they came to our website, we can see that connectivity. Then once they're on our website, then they come into Eloqua and we've got their contact information, right? So before they even get into Eloqua, they're kind of a pseudo-anonymous, right? We at least have an ID on who those people are. Once they give us their contact information, we have a little bit more. We also use demand base, and now we're looking at Dun & Bradstreet from a reverse IP lookup perspective. Comes into the pipeline inside of Salesforce, and we can see, and we can link that full journey. So we're not just saying, hey, what's that last click from an advertisement into say the last touch funnel, but we can see how far back all of those advertisements actually affected the purchase journey. So what we think behind Verity is not just that it's all coming in, all this stuff's coming in on at least a daily basis, but it's the connectedness of the whole thing. The Marketing Insights report was our first way to show salespeople and marketers what all that activity looks like. Everything from, we have impressions in there. You can see media impressions kind of right in the middle of the screen for that specific account. We have the engagement score, which is a compilation of all those activities that you see listed there. We boil it up into different categories that are important for our business, like switching and security. And then we provide all the contact details down below. Bring up like this most interested, those are really binging with us in some way, or anything from like event attendance, email engagements. We can track about 10% of the time. We know an email address about 10% of the time for anybody that comes to our website. So we show all that information to the account manager. And one thing I didn't say that was really important is that this is for all of our major accounts that our company cares about. So it's unique to each different account manager. So we're pretty excited about it.